A few days ago, on July 25th, I published an article marking the feast of Spain's patron saint, James, son of Zebedee. Known in Christian tradition as the elder brother of John the Evangelist, he was for more than 1,000 years far more famously revered as Santiago Matamoros, Saint James the Moor, that is Muslim, slayer. He was the very embodiment of Spain's centuries-long struggle to reclaim its land and faith from Islamic rule. Now, a few days later, I want to share the story again, this time in video form. After all, in an age when the memory of Christian resistance is being deliberately erased, his story demands to be told and remembered. Okay, in the year 711, Muslim armies from North Africa flooded into Christian Spain, which had been evangelized by St. James himself in the 1st century AD. I've already detailed the atrocities committed during this invasion, see chapters 3 and 6, especially of my sword and scimitar, but for our purposes, 2 points stand out. First, not all of the Iberian Peninsula was conquered. A remnant of Christians who refused to submit to Muslim rule retreated into the mountainous northwest, into Asturias. Second, the Muslim aggression against this Christian enclave continued for decades, until a fragile peace was imposed, on the humiliating condition that the Christian king of Asturias send 100 of the prettiest virgin girls each year to the emir of Cordoba. This grotesque tribute continued for decades, until sometime after King Ramiro I ascended to the throne and defiantly refused to send any more Christian girls to Muslim harems. Swift and terrible was the Muslim response. Ramiro's resistance wasn't seen as mere rebellion. It was a blasphemous affront to Islamic supremacy. So in retaliation, the emir of Cordoba sent a massive army north to crush the defiant Christians once and for all. According to the chronicles, the Muslim force numbered 60,000. Arab and Berber cavalry and infantry drawn from all across Al-Andalus. Ramiro, vastly outnumbered, could barely rally only 5,000 Christian fighters. The two armies met near Clavijo, in the rugged hills of La Rioja. The Christians prepared themselves for annihilation. As night fell, Ramiro withdrew to his tents and prayed. And that night, heaven answered. St. James the Greater, apostle of Christ, evangelizer of Spain, appeared to him in a vision, radiant, sword drawn, astride a white horse. He promised to ride with the Christian army into battle and crush the enemies of Christ. St. James fights for us, King Ramiro was heard crying before dawn, stirring his bewildered, sleepy men. Let the enemies of Christ fall beneath his sword. As sunlight broke across the hills on May 23, in the year 844, Christian soldiers reported seeing a dazzling figure on horseback charging from the mountains. It was Santiago, shining in celestial armor, cutting through Muslim ranks like divine lightning. With the rallying cry, St. James and strike for Spain, the Christians charged, emboldened by the presence of their heavenly commander. What should have been a massacre became a miracle. The Cordoban army was shattered and routed. Later accounts claimed every last Muslim soldier was slain. Ramiro emerged victorious and vowed eternal devotion to St. James. He pledged to build churches in the apostle's honor, to make a yearly pilgrimage to his tomb at Santiago de Compostela, and to honor him as patron and protector of Spain. As for the humiliating annual tribute of 100 virgin girls, it became a bad memory. Over time, Santiago Matamoros, St. James the Muslim slayer, became enshrined in the very soul of Christian Spain. He was immortalized in art and sculpture, sword raised high, trampling Muslims beneath the hooves of his white charger. Centuries later, a Castilian noble would shout, "With Santiago leading us, we shall trample the crescent beneath the hooves of our horses." At the decisive Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa in 1212, which broke the Muslim yoke once and for all, another chronicler wrote, "Santiago, destroyer of Moors, has descended from heaven with a burning sword. Praise be to God who has shown us his champion." Even Muslim chroniclers took note of this fearsome apparition and the devotion he stirred. Ibn al-Khattab complained centuries later, quote, "The Franks call upon a dead apostle, and yet their banners advance while ours retreat." Needless to say, and as might be expected, modern academics, starting in 1968, concluded that the Battle of Clavijo never even happened. Be that as it may, what is undeniable is this. For over 1,000 years, Christian Spain believed it happened. And that belief shaped the Spanish soul. The Reconquista was no mere war. It was holy retribution, with St. James as the divine avenger against Islam's persecution of Christendom. Indeed, 1,000 years after Clavijo, here is how the famous Dom Prosper Guéranger, the French architect of the modern liturgical revival, reflected on the legacy of St. James the Moor Slayer when he was writing in the 19th century. He wrote, quote, "Nearly 8 centuries had passed over that tomb of St. James in the north of Spain, when lights were seen glimmering over the briars that covered the neglected monument? What are those sudden shouts from the mountains? Who is this unknown chief rallying a doomed band against an immense army? Swift as lightning and bearing in one hand a white standard with a red cross, he rushes with drawn sword upon the panic-stricken foe, and dyes the feet of his charger in the blood of 70,000 slain. Hail to the chief of the holy war, St. James, forward, Spain. It is the reappearance of the Galilean fisherman, whom the man-god once called from the bark where he was mending his nets. It is the reappearance of the elder son of thunder, now free to hurl the thunderbolt upon these new Samaritans, who pretend to honor the unity of God by making Christ no more than a prophet. He's referring to the Mohammedans. That, far more than a memory of a saint, was what July 25th once commemorated in Spain. The unyielding spirit of a civilization that refused to bow. St. James was not merely a figure of piety. He was a blazing symbol of Christian defiance, a rallying call to arms against those who sought to erase the faith from Spain, namely Muslims. For centuries, he stood at the very heart of a national identity forged in resistance and renewal. Today, that legacy is being dismantled, not by invading Muslim armies, but by Spain's own so-called elites, who, in the name of tolerance and diversity, have chosen to erase their past. St. James the Moor Slayer, once hailed as the divine protector of Spain, is now treated as a relic of shame, an embarrassment to be cancelled out of public memory. Meanwhile, as these elites rewrite history, Muslim migrants across Europe, including in Spain, are once again engaging in acts of anti-Christian violence, desecrating churches, smashing crosses, and committing crimes, including much rape and murder, against the very communities whose ancestors once fought to preserve their faith and land. This isn't coincidence, it's surrender. And what a nation forgets, it forfeits.